Okay, we will start with our first recognition of visitors. There will be 2 opportunities for public comment at tonight's meeting, now and at the end of the meeting. This first session will be capped at 30 minutes total. Anyone who does not get to speak now will be able to do so later. Comments including obscene language, libelous statements, threats of violence, or statements advocating racial, religious, or other forms of prejudice will not be tolerated. Anyone wishing to discuss matters involving individual district personnel or students should present their comments or concerns to the superintendent during regular business hours. And finally, remember, there is no cross-dialogue between speakers and members of the board. Anyone wishing to speak is invited to step forward. Please identify yourself and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
How you doing? My name's Carl Gilpatrick. I'm over on 26 John Street in Cornwall. A few months back, I came to, first of all, I wanted to thank the teachers for getting me involved in coming to the school board meetings. I started coming to the school board meetings basically because I had heard some things coming from the teachers, coming from the board, you know, how the teachers are being treated unfairly in the schools and stuff like that. And I said, you know what, this is just probably normal. Let's get the money, you know, and then we're going to be quiet. That didn't happen. I've been a union president for 25 years with the CSEA. I resigned last year. I always wanted to get the other side of what's going on and stuff. And so I started coming to the school board meetings, and I started listening to the teachers. I never heard anything about money. What I did hear things was the lack of respect that they were getting at the schools. The lack of equipment that they were getting from the school district. Support is as far as teachers needing, parents needing their kids who may have had disabilities and stuff like that, getting the extra help that they needed. And I just kind of wondered, like, whatever happened to that? We don't talk about it anymore. It's gone. So when the teachers, you know, the teachers aren't here every month or anything like that, but I just don't find out that that all of these problems just disappeared because they signed a contract. So with that in mind, I started reaching out to teachers and I started asking them questions too. You know, are you getting the support that you need? They're not. Okay, I listened to some of the board members and said, we hear you guys, we hear you, we're gonna be there for you. Has there ever been any follow-up to any of this? You know, is there a committee to it? And if there is a committee, what is the findings of the committee? Are the teachers still complaining? We owe it to them. We owe it to these kids. You know, I just don't know what happened here. I'm at a loss. Mr. Carty, I reached out to you and thank you for you always responded back to my emails. And I did bring up an issue that I guess we still disagree on. And so my question is, what is an employee of the school district? Is a private contractor an employee of the school district, or is that person just employed by the school district? Anyone that fills out a 1099 is actually not an employee of the school. So I disagree with you on the fact that I couldn't discuss a certain issue that I had. When I think it involved professional development. To be honest with you, I'm still not even sure what it is because it seems to me as though it's so closed, like I can't ask a question. If I can't ask a question to the school board, if I can't reach out to a school board member and get an answer, then what are you all doing here? You know, what's your job? I shouldn't have to just reach out to the superintendent of schools. I should be allowed to reach out to the school board members and receive an answer. It's that simple. I'm a taxpayer. My kids come to this school. It's a simple thing. Where's the transparency in the school district? You know, and these are things that are really concerning. You know, we don't hear about curriculum. What curriculums are being taught? Let's not talk about them in public because, boy, we don't want to get the parents upset. You wanted them involved. You should want these parents involved in what's going on in these schools. And I think if some of these parents found out what's really going on in the schools, they'd be here every month. And that's what, I'm so glad that the teachers got me fired up to be here every month, you know? But I think that this board should really step back, start looking at some of the policies. This is the board, you're responsible to the community. The elected officials, you are responsible to the community. You know, let's be open about this. We can't just close meetings off because or shut somebody down because they're asking a basic question on How much is a person getting paid, or what is the content of their program? You elected board members, it's your job to take control of what's going on in the school district. You answer to the community, okay? That's your job. It's not Mr. Dade's job to answer to the community, although I can always go and ask him a question or something like that, but sometimes people just choose not to ask him. Maybe they want to go to you. And for you to tell me, well, I don't know, you got to come to a school board meeting, that's just ridiculous. You know, I mean, you should have an answer. If a taxpayer asks you how much something costs, you should have the answer for them. You know, they shouldn't have to FOIL request and wait 60 days or something to get a letter. That's just nonsense. And so I just hope you guys step back, take a real good look at these policies and start changing them and really start supporting these teachers. We always get the old fuzzy side of how everything is going so great in Cornwall. It's not the case. It's not the case. Reach out to these teachers. Get yourself involved with the teachers and ask them questions. Because I'm telling you right now, our children are suffering. You might not see it right now, but you're going in the future, okay? And as far as, you know, I see some of the stuff my kid comes home with, these computers and stuff like that. They're so outdated, it's not funny. Do all kids in the school district, can I find that answer out anyway, do all the kids in the school district, do they all have computers? Do they have Chromebooks, I think they call it? Does every single student in the school district have a Chromebook? Right. You know, you guys got to start looking into this. These teachers are complaining, and maybe they're just afraid of the repercussions that are going to come back. But it's your job as an elected official to go and find out from these guys, hey, what do you guys need? What are we missing here? What's going wrong? There's a lot going wrong. There's a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kilpatrick.
Barbara Gazda. I came before the board to ask for information about the college courses that are offered at the high school. And you did give me some information, but it's not everything. We really need to know how many courses, how many teachers, how many students. We need the complete picture on this, because this is not mandated. And it became very interesting at the December 19th meeting, because as I sat here, 2 parents came before you to ask for assistance as far as a co-teaching situation for the U.S. History 11th grade course, which is a state-mandated course that they have to pass for graduation. And these parents had gone through the channels. They went to the classroom teacher, they went to administration, and then I guess they felt it was necessary to come to the board. And, I mean, this board is the governing body for this district. So they presented, and they did it very respectfully. They presented to you their situation. And I hope that you're going to help these people now. This is not, you know, something we do in May to just give them a quick course to get them ready for the regents. These are special ed students, and they need our attention. And so I would hope that we are going to support this effort. If we don't have an answer tonight, I hope we're going to have one in a couple of weeks at the next meeting. And the board is going to look into this. These are mandated courses. These college courses are not. And I just want to be fair to everybody. For my, for all that we spend on school taxes here, $80 million. And we also have rescue money. So we should be able to step up and help these students be successful. That's job one. Education here, that is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gazda. Okay, so that will close our public comments. I do want to take a moment to offer some information regarding some comments and questions that were offered at the last meeting. Ms. Gazda was just referring to one, was brought up by two parents, Denise Carter and Christine Diaz, regarding co-teach classrooms or co-teach assistants at the high school level. So the administration is ready to implement short-term assistance, which includes push-in instructional support and increased tutoring hours. That's the short-term solution. And then long-term, the administration will present options to the board for addressing these issues during the budgeting process, which does happen during the spring. And also, just a note, members of the administration have met with both of those parties that spoke and will meet with them again in the near future to provide more direct information. Ms. Gazda last week, a few weeks ago at this point, brought up the decision to not allow homeschool students to participate in school activities. The board discussed that issue at some length during our board meeting on December 5th. So instead of simply rehashing that discussion, I would just suggest that anyone looking for further context around our decision should revert back to that meeting, which is available on our YouTube page. And just very immediate response on just two very small points. Mr. Gilpatrick brought up the definition of an employee as being sort of the crux of a particular argument. I would just remind you of the text that I quoted at the beginning of our meeting. Anyone wishing to discuss matters involving individual district personnel. So it's not really hinging on the definition of employee. And as far as never talking about the curriculum, we're actually going to get a presentation tonight from our assistant superintendent for instruction. So hopefully that satisfies at least some of that curiosity. Okay, we will now move on to our recognitions. Tonight is a very, this is somebody who has been recognized in many ways, so we'll just add one more to the mix. The Board of Education would like to recognize Cornwall Central High School student Carrie Beloga, who was named the Champ Sports National Cross Country Champion for 2022, as well as winning the New York State Federation title. I know, I'm sure it was the video that we sent you prior to your race that really gave you the extra motivation. You realized, oh, this must be important. So we will take all of the deserved credit as you wish. But for the official presentation, I will pass it along to Mr. Terry Dade.
Thank you, Brendan. Despite anything that anyone says about our district, we are incredibly proud of our students, the folks that surround them with support each and every day. And we can't find any better example than we have in Carrie Beloga. I am not in the best position to state all of her accolades because I've only had the pleasure of knowing Carrie and her family and her coaches for just over 2.5 years. So I do, on behalf of the district and the Board of Education, want to kind of kick off our Carrie-thon celebration that will extend over the next month or so, going back to the high school as well for a little bit more grandeur. But we did want an opportunity for the Board of Education to have some time with you and your family. I got to join you for signing day to the University of Colorado, one of the, if not the best. You know, you'll have some peers who will debate that, but we all know that you're going to the best institution that there is for elite athletes, particularly in track and field and cross country. So Carrie, we're going to ask you and your family to come on up for some recognition, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Piazza and your coaches. But until then, if we could all join me in a round of applause for our national champion.
bask in your glory, so.
Thank you, Mr. Dade. So I'm very pleased to be here tonight on behalf of the Cornwall Central High School administration to recognize the incredible accomplishments of one of our Cornwall student athletes, Carrie Beloga. On Saturday, December 10th, as Mr. Carty was saying, Carrie won the Champ Sports Cross Country National Championship in San Diego, California, an incredible accomplishment. Carrie ran a time of 16 minutes, 49.2 seconds, which is one of the fastest times run on the course ever by a high schooler. The national championship is a culmination of years of Carrie's hard work, sacrifice, and dedication. I want to congratulate Mr. and Mrs. Beloga, both educators, and Carrie's parents who have supported her in reaching this incredible achievement, as well as her CCHS cross-country and track and field coaches, Brian Creedon and Coach Dave Foyer. I would also like to take this opportunity to point out that Coach Foyer recently received the honor of being selected to the New York State High School Coaching Hall of Fame. Carrie has accomplished all that a high school student athlete could wish to at the section, state, and national level. This past summer, Carrie represented the United States at the World Junior Championships in Columbia, and we're so excited to see Carrie take on her next challenge on January 21st in Richmond, Virginia, when she will compete to qualify for the upcoming U20 World Championships in Australia. Beyond her athletic accomplishments, Carrie is also an excellent student, earning a 93.1 GPA thus far through her high school career. Carrie is a member of the CCHS Student Athlete Leadership Council, and perhaps my favorite memory and what really kind of tells you everything about Carrie was seeing her and her teammates working with our elementary and middle school age students, including my daughter, at the Girls in Sports Day this past October. And to see how the kids react to her and what a role model and leader she is really tells you all you need to know about Carrie and why she's accomplished so much in her young life thus far. Carrie will continue her academic and athletic pursuits at the University of Colorado next fall. Carrie, you're truly a one-of-a-kind athlete and role model for all of our students here in Cornwall. We're so very proud of the person that you are, and we look forward to seeing all that you accomplish at Colorado and beyond. Congratulations. And I believe Mr. Simo wanted to come up, and our athletic director, and say a few words as well.
It's easy to look at a picture and watch somebody cross the finish line or see them at the top of a podium and just say, wow, that's impressive and that's wonderful. But it's so important when we see those accomplishments that we take into perspective what it took to get there. And when I talk about the sacrifice that Carrie has made throughout her academic time here at Cornwall and her extracurricular time, it speaks volumes about the person that she is. In our leadership council, we talk about what does it mean to be a leader? You know, what does it mean to face adversity? And if you have an opportunity to watch this race, it speaks exactly to what that means to be a champion. Throughout the race, it was Carrie and two other girls battling for, just jockeying for position throughout. And there was times where they made their moves and the competition tried to run away. And Carrie stayed fast to just staying with them and staying true to who she was and just not allowing them to run away with the race. And she weaved in and out, got boxed in a couple times, dodged a couple of little obstacles and here and there. And at the hardest point of the race, facing this huge hill, that's where she made her move. And that speaks about the grit and just the courage. Absolutely fearless when you watch her in that race, just in terms of attacking it and just believing in herself and knowing that she is a champion and that nothing could stop her from finishing where she did in that race. So just so extremely proud of everything that you represent, and we know that you're going to continue to do great things. All right. Next, I want to introduce Coach Foyer and Coach Creedon. Come on up and say a couple of words.
Yeah, I think you guys have said it all. It's the one thing that has when Carrie made her move up on the hill. I had to get up on that hill, so I know how hard it was. I almost had a heart attack. My cardiologist has got some words. It's truly a pleasure. And what you see here, this smile, this wonderful person, she truly is a wonderful person. She's a great athlete, but she's a better person. And it's truly a pleasure to work with her every single day. I totally enjoyed it. Thank you for everything.
Now I really have nothing left. I just want to thank the board and the administration for the recognition tonight and for all their support. A lot goes into the lead up to a national championship, and we were able to take Carrie to Rhode Island and to Saratoga and to New York City, and that's because we have the resources to find our top athletes the best competition possible. So thanks again. I just want to publicly thank Carrie for giving me a reason to go to San Diego 3 times. Would have been 4 not for COVID. Favorite city in America. And thanks again.
And Carrie, not that there's anything left to say, but I think I speak for everybody. We're just in awe of you. I mean, it's kind of silly that we're honoring you. I mean, we're just kind of, I feel privileged to just be sharing this space with somebody that is so incredibly accomplished. And we very much look forward to seeing all the amazing things that I know that you're going to do in the near and long-term future. Congratulations. And with that, you can leave if you want. You don't have to feel like that's rude, or you're more than welcome to stay, obviously. Oh, absolutely, yes, please.
I didn't plan on saying anything, but as I was sitting there, I felt compelled that I just remembered 25 years ago, Katie and I deciding where we wanted to live. You know, I grew up in Pearl River, and that was a, obvious choice. And I work in North Rockland, and we were thinking of there. And then we, Katie's originally from New Windsor, so we started to think about Cornwall, and those were our final choices. And, Katie and I really did make our decision on moving to Cornwall based on, Dave and Brian and the track program they had in place. Because if we ever had kids, which we were, what better place to raise them? But of course, beyond how great those two are, having, I said this at Carrie's signing, all of this support, all of these years for all our children, has meant the world to us. So don't ever disregard, the little thank yous and certificates and time that you thank people for their accomplishments, because it means a tremendous deal. And again, this community really did get Carrie to the mountaintop. So thank you.
Thank you.
But now you can go if you would like. Thank you again.
You can walk or you can run.
Right. Good one, Margaret.
I've been holding that in my pocket for a while.
A while. So that will bring us to our, to our presentations. So for a presentation on current academic data, I will pass it along to our Assistant Superintendent for Instruction, Mrs. Megan Argenio.
Okay, good evening, and congratulations again to Carrie. She is beyond a pleasure, both watching her grow as an athlete, but more so as just a person. She's just a fantastic representation of what we have in our district. So welcome to our annual reports, which unfortunately we had to skip a year because of COVID, but we are back. So just a couple of reminders. This report will be based on the 2019 data and 2022 data. Last school year, well, 2020, there was no data to compare. And in 2021, there were some assessments. However, the attendance rate across the country, across the state was not very good. There was no comparative analysis, and even my own, one of my own children who took the exams in 8th grade last year came home and shared that took it in 7th grade, came home and shared that the passages were passages they already had completed in practice sessions. So we're just going to cancel that out because we had no comparative data anyway to share from. So this report is based on 2019 to 2022. We gather our results from the New York State Regents exams, 3-8 math and ELA exams. The data is extracted from SchoolMeter, which is part of our report card, which I will go into in just a little bit, just to kind of show everyone where you can also access this data. So comparatively speaking, our grade 3 through 8 local, regional, and state rankings. In the BOCES region, we rated number 2 in 2022, rated number 1 in 2019. I'll go into that in a minute. The Mid-Hudson region, which is Orange, Dutchess, and Sullivan, we went from number 1 in 2019 to number 2 in 2022. In Orange and Westchester, we maintained at number 17. Orange, Rockland, and Westchester counties combined, we are at number 19. And in New York State, we are at number 53 for 2022 from 51 in 2019. Ranking at 53, that puts us at the top 8% in the state. So once again, this is for our 3-8 ELA and math exams. We're at the top 8% in New York State. So a deeper look, if you look at our OU BOCES region, we actually ranked number 1 in our ELA ranking. We previously were number 1. We actually increased by 7 percentile points within our mastery, which is huge. So that shows that we're continuing to grow within our own ranking points. Our math score for the region, we did decrease by 1.4 percentile points, which ultimately resulted for our 3-8 ELA and math combo in the region to number 2 behind Greenwood Lake. So they tested 84 students. We had 1,100 students. We ranked as number 2, and right behind us was Warwick Valley. Looking at the Mid-Hudson region, again, ELA, we actually are number 1 in the county for Orange, Dutchess, and Sullivan. And although we did dip slightly for our math 3-8 scores, although we dipped from a ranking of 1 to 2, we still showed growth by 2.2 percentile points within that level. So we are still trending towards growth in our math. Actually, our math overall, we did very well. So number 1 is Greenwood Lake with 84 students tested, Cornwall's with 1,100, and right behind that is Rhinebeck with 374. So the upcoming slides are going to show us our 3-8 test refusals, a deeper look into ELA and math for 3-8, Regents results, and then reflective practice and next steps. So back in 2022, our 2019, you can see our refusals between 2018 and 19 were around the 21%. Prior to that, we had a much higher refusal rate. We are very excited about our participation this past spring. So this tells us not only the data that's right in front of us, but this is a huge participation, so we have a really nice lens of our students. I've done many reports that talk about summative data, formative data, and we always say it is one pulse check, and that is correct. So we use a whole bevy of assessments in order to move our students forward, but it's really nice that we actually have a really good snapshot of how our kids are doing. So our ELA participation was at 87%, and our math was at 85% for our 3-8 assessments. This is the highest I have seen it since I probably got here in 2012. Okay, so if we're looking across, these are our Orange County rankings. Again, I'm comparing 2019 to 2022. You can see that in ELA grade 3, we moved the needle from 2nd to 1st, maintaining 2nd place for math. Our 4th grade ELA results, we again moved up to 1st, maintaining math at 1st. Grade 5, we did dip a little bit from 2nd to 4th, and 5th grade we maintained in math at 2nd. Sixth grade, we maintained at second in our ranking for ELA. We moved up to second from third in math. In seventh grade, we maintained both in ELA and math for second place ranking. And in eighth grade, we moved from second to first and maintained first for math. So as you can see, we are really doing a very nice job, and we're moving the needle in the right direction. Orange, Rockland, and Westchester results. We went from third grade, we went from 24th to 11th, 26th to 24th, maintaining about the same in math. Fourth grade, we did decrease, and that is an area I'll talk about in a little bit, as well as fifth grade ELA, but we did improve slightly in fifth grade math. In looking at our sixth grade, we made very nice improvement in our ELA from 23rd to 15th, 25th to 18th in math. We moved slightly in seventh grade ELA to 17th. Nice movement in math from 18th. I'm sorry, that's one we'll talk about. That went the opposite direction. Eighth grade, we maintained at 21st, and math for eighth grade, we did dip slightly to 16th. Our New York State rankings are very nice to look at. We, for grade 3, are currently in the top 7% in New York State for ELA and top 13th% for math. For grade 4, and you can see the comparison on your own, I don't need to share that with you guys, but for 2019 to 2022, for grade 4 ELA, we're currently at the top 13% and top 4% for math. Grade 5 ELA, top 20%, and in math, we're in the top 14% for New York State. Grade 6 for ELA, we're in the top 6%. That's huge. We went from 77th to 40th. ELA, we went from 110th to 69th, and we are in the top 10%. Grade 7, we're in the top 7% for ELA and top 10% for math. Grade 8, we're in the top 10% for ELA and top 7% for math. So I think we need to pause for a second and just acknowledge those scores, which we are, again, coming out of a pandemic, and I'll talk a little bit about the steps we've taken for that, but to stand here 2 years after moving out of a pandemic, and we can say we're at the top 20% of New York State school districts is an enormous achievement to everybody that works in our school district. When we look at the Region 6 exams, so our Region 6 exams are made up of U.S. History and Government, English Language Arts, Global History and Geography, Living Environment, also known as Biology, Earth Science, Chemistry, Physics, Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. So remember, for Algebra 1 and Biology, our accelerated students in 8th grade also participate in these Regents exams. It's their first opportunity to take a Regents, so their data is compiled in here. Also remember, this past year, New York State pulled the U.S. History and Government exam. They were supposed to take that in, not May, June. They were supposed to take, no, they took that, they were supposed to take that in May. Everybody else was taking the exams in June, and for whatever reason at the last minute, they pulled the plug. They said it had to do with ongoings in the news. So we don't have that data this year to share with you as a comparison, but we'll have it for next year. So our Orange County rankings, again, around this county. English Language Arts, we're currently ranking 5th. Global Studies, we're maintaining our 2nd place. Earth Science, we've moved the needle to 6th place. That's been an area of focus for us for a while. If you recall, I've been doing presentations over the years about how we switched the math sequence to support giving our students more time in their mathematical studies, to support more lab time and so on in Earth Science, and putting biology first. Living Environment, we maintained 2nd. Chemistry, we moved the needle to 8th. Physics, we moved it to 6th. Algebra, we're 3rd. Geometry, 2nd. And maintaining 4th for Orange County and Algebra 2. In Orange, Rockland, and Westchester counties, you can see our results here. We, English Language Arts, 30th. We're going to talk about English Language Arts in a minute and the impact of the pandemic with writing, which is, you're going to see some movement there. Global maintained at 16th. We're 35th for earth science. Biology, we moved to 20th. Chemistry, we moved to 32nd. Physics 13th, algebra 18th, geometry 15th, and algebra 2 15th. Again, all moving in the right direction, showing growth within each one of our bands for our success. So in looking at New York State, our Regents exams, English language arts, we are currently in the top 17% in New York State. Global history, we're in the top 8%. Earth science, we're in the top 45th. Now, again, we've made movement there too. Living environment, we're in the top 21st. Chemistry, 48th. Physics, we're in the top 34% in New York State, moving from 403rd to 175th. Algebra, we're in the top 11%, geometry, the top half, and algebra 2, the top 25%. So next steps. After we always look at the data, we say, what do we do with this data? So we work to break it down, we look to see where our strands are, and what's standing out to us. So one of the things you're gonna note, and I was gonna say we could do a little quiz, but I'll save you on that. There's some strands that are always related to English language arts. And in a time when you don't have kids in front of you all the time, something's gotta give. So we have found that some of the depth in our writing, which carries over into various content areas, you will see that we are working in that area to boost back up there. But overall, we're extremely pleased with our 3-8 results, with our Regents results. 2019, when I did that presentation, we were blown away with how great we did. It was a banner year. Then COVID hit. So to see where we are now and looking at 2019 in comparison, there is nothing but pride for what our district should be feeling. We used federally funded teachers, teaching assistants for push-in support, which ultimately created smaller classrooms within classroom models to help support closing gaps. We also aligned our focus planning with our power standards, revamping our maps early on, so that way we can meet our kids for achievement. So this work is ongoing. Obviously, our work's always ongoing. It's never done, but this is where we are. Tremendous participation rate, you know, huge praise to parents who maybe had trepidation in the 3-8 world for their kids taking the exams in the past. Knowing that we have 85 and 87% participation rate really helps us in looking at the whole puzzle. Again, if it's not taken, we have plenty of other data points, but it does help to complete the puzzle for us. Just a reminder, we had done presentations during the pandemic about you know, how are we going to strategically plan to move our kids forward. We're in an unprecedented time. We've never had a pandemic. We've never had children not in school, like unheard of. So we really focused on planning with the power standards. We were very strategic with our hybrid schedules, getting our kids in front of us. I know that was, we climbed mountains to get our kids here and to push forward every single day, and that's why we're here. And so now moving forward, we're back to the depth, we're back to rigor, we're back to, you know, exciting things. Teachers are coming to us and saying we need to give benchmark assessments, we need to do midterms. Like, we are certainly back to not just teaching here to get the kids across the line, but going back to teaching all in here. That's what we've always done, and that's where we thankfully, thank God, are back. Just a deeper dive. So I just kind of shared before a little bit of what we're seeing. Overall, we're doing a great job in reading and informational texts, literature, and language. But we do need some support in pulling that key evidence, applying it across content areas. I mean, there's a whole sequence here of things that we're going to be looking at, we are looking at. But the gist is we need to make those connections across content, deeper in our writing, making stronger vocabulary, again, because when you don't have the kids in front of you every day, those are those pieces that are going to be missing. And now that's part of what we're focusing on. For math, I shared before, we were very happy with our math scores. We increased in our math scores across the board. So, good strengths in operations, algebraic thinking and measurement. Multi-step word problems is an area we're red flagging. Applying fractions in constructed response questions, multiplication and division. Why? Because when you're doing those, that's not a math problem, that's a word problem, which is a reading problem. So if you're having difficulty in other areas such as ELA and applying that breakdown skill, you're gonna have it here in math, certainly. So again, back to the pandemic power standards, proficiency versus depth and mastery, and that's where our focus is. We're very proud to share that we've had the highest percentage in passing for ELA at the middle school since 2018 in grades 6 and 7. Those teams have been working super hard over the years to increase that, so I'm very proud of them. Again, we're going to focus around craft and structure and language, analyzing those connections, building vocabulary. So you're kind of seeing a trend here of the areas that we are clearly identifying as needs for more support. Our Regents 8 algebra was fantastic. We tied for first place in New York State. And even more so when I make that statement, you have to remember that the kids taking that exam in Algebra 8, they have been on an accelerated path during a pandemic. So in a traditional year, we're putting those kids through 2 years of math in 1 year, never mind throwing a pandemic on it. So this is a huge achievement for our teachers. So we're going to improve overall, though, in math with focusing on conversions and measurement, expressions and equations, and then those multi-step equations. High school, the passing rate for our exams remained relatively the same, but now here we are looking at our mastery. Same in regard to 3-8, ELA and math. We're going to be doing the same for our mastery with our regents. Yes, we're moving forward within each band. Yes, we're pushing our kids to where they need to be, but now we're going to get back to that depth and mastery. So this is something that I think everybody has to kind of realize too when I say those things. If you really think about the exams that were administered last spring, in 2022, it was the first time our seniors who still needed to take a Regents had taken a Regents since 9th grade. Our juniors, who are now seniors, it was the first time they had seen a Regents since they were in the 8th grade if they were in the advanced track, and if they were not on the advanced track, they had never seen a Regents. And spring 2022 was the first time our freshmen and sophomore students ever sat for a Regents exam. That holds a lot of weight. So yes, they've taken the 3-8 exams. Those are precursors to depth and endurance, mastery of skill. But when you're coming back after what these kids had to come back to and sit for such a rigorous exam, you're not only out of practice, you don't even know what to anticipate. So with that said, again, super proud. But what we're gonna do to build up their endurance and their mastery is we've reinstated the midterms, which will simulate the Regents, any course that ends in a Regents, and our AP exams. So kids this January who take those courses, they will sit and they will take a midterm, which will help us then have another data point to see where our kids are this time of the year, mid-year, what we need to do to revamp and move them forward. And it also helps them build up their depth of taking the exam and their endurance for mastery. During 21-22, students received in K through 12 1,283 hours of tutoring. And then this year, 1,218 hours will be slated for completion at the end of this year for K-12 students to help support those gaps in learning. And that's taken from the federally funded money, which that will exhaust it. So we will be completely done with that at this point. Where can you find this information? On the website, the About Us. Also, I put it up here just to kind of do a quick little explanation for you guys. So if you click on it on my report, or if you just go onto the website, this is from our, this is our report card. So how are we doing? And this is on New York State Education Department. So it gives us the comparison of how Cornwall is doing against New York State. So you'll see here, for example, our grade 3 ELA results. New York State's proficiency is at 46%, Cornwall's is at 67%. And you can see that for each level throughout, as well as you can see a nice breakdown of our students, general ed, students with disabilities, economically disadvantaged, and so on. You can see how the kids have done. And this continues throughout 3-8 and Regents. Let's see here. So our grade 4, for example, math, New York State is 43% proficient, Cornwall's at 70% proficiency. And on this side, you want to see us at the lower end because that's level 1. So you want to see us at the higher end on this side. And this goes all the way down at any time if you guys want grade 7, 35% to 59%, and so on. So you guys get the picture. And it has it all for our this Algebra 2 region, 65% in the state. We're at 92% proficiency for Algebra 2 in New York State. Let me just get back here. Okay, so with that said, now it's time for some brag and dragon. So, you know, again, the scores are a part of our puzzle, and we talk about this all the time, but we do pride ourselves on all things that make Cornwall special and unique, and we have so much to be proud for. You know, I take it like I'm kind of like, everyone who knows me, they're like, you're the mama bear, and this is my world. So I'm very proud. I'm very kind of like, you know, beyond in awe the fact that we made it from the most horrible situation that we could think of in terms of guiding thousands and thousands of children and their families through a pandemic, doing the best we could. We did the best we could. There was no playbook for this. We've never navigated a pandemic, and I would challenge anyone to say that, hey, you know what, you should have done X, Y, or Z. Well, God forbid we ever have another pandemic, we can chat. But in the meantime, I'm pretty proud of what I'm seeing up here. So we're not just about scores. Scores are great, and again, it's one pulse check. But we have other things that we need to be looking at. So this was just released. Orange County, Niche has rated us again as 2023 best school districts in Orange County. They also look at other things such as athletes, best places to live, best school districts, and they get their data from the U.S. State Department of Education, as well as NYSED, and so on. This is not a great slide, but you'll see in yours, it just kind of gives a breakdown of all their data points to get to where they are. So for New York State, we have been ranked at the top 8%. Best places to teach in New York, top 11%, according to Niche. Best school districts for athletes, the top 1%. I put this slide here because we always look, okay, it's nice that we do well in Orange County, but we always look for Orange, Rockland, and Westchester as our comparison. So again, Cornwall is at the top for Orange County, Suffern's at the top for Rockland, and Scarsdale's at the top for Westchester. Our national rankings, Cornwall Central School District is in the top 3% in the nation, best school districts in America. So again, top 3% in the country, best places to teach in America, top 2%, best districts, districts with the best teachers in America are the top 7%, and best school districts for athletes, top 1%. These are huge numbers for us. U.S. News and World Report ranking our high school. Cornwall Central High School is in the top 16% in the nation. For college readiness, we're at the top 19% in the nation. And for college curriculum, we're at the top 16% in the nation, getting our kids ready for what's ahead of them. Our report card notes that class of 2022 is a 97% graduation rate. We did dip down to 96% in 2021, 97 in 2020, and 18 and 19 we were at 95%. So our National Merit Scholars, I know we talk about these things throughout the year and it's very exciting when it happens, but I think we really have to understand the gravity of what these nods and national accreditations mean. So Every year, 1.5 million kids sit for the PSAT. 1.5 million juniors. And out of that, 50,000 high scorers are identified as either a commended student, which is about 34,000, or a semifinalist, which is about 16,000. And then eventually they name their top national merit finalists, which is about 15,000. We have continually, for the last several years, ranked in that. That is huge. I remember when I came here, we didn't have anybody who did this. Then in 2019, we had our first national scholar. She was one of our board reps and went to Harvard, and we were just like blown away by her. We always say she's gonna be a president. She's wonderful. So since that time, COVID put a pause on things. But in 2021, we had 2 national scholars. In 2022, we had 2 national scholars. And currently, we have 2 high school seniors who are in the semifinalist round. So they've made it to the top 16,000 from 1.5 million, and they're in the semifinalist round. So I'm hoping for the best for them. We'll find out in the coming months. In the arts, we've had students who have achieved the prestigious American Visions Medal. This is a national program that recognizes outstanding creativity in teens and offers opportunities for scholarships upon graduation from high school. As you can see, in 21, we had an American Visions national nominee. We've had several regional awards in both, in all gold, silver, and honorable mention. And in 2018, we actually had a winner of the Visions National Award receive the silver medal. Our music honors are ongoing. This year already, we have 2 all-state musicians. It's January, this happened in December. We have 11 area all-state musicians and 1 New York State Band Directors Association musician. In 21-22, we had 1 national instrumental jazz musician, 8 all-state and 15 all-state musicians. In 2021, we had 1 national concert band musician, 2 all-state musicians, and 1 Band Directors Association musician. And in 1920, we had 4 all-state musicians, 12 area all-state musicians, and 2 New York Band Association members. And it's important for us to see this whole picture because that's what really makes us in our annual data report. And of course, we have a national runner who, she's pretty good. So she won the 2022 #1 in the country, the Champs National Cross Country Championship. And last year she came in 4th, and you know she wasn't gonna ever have that happen again. But that's not it. Last spring, if you recall, in 2022, our track and field team made us very proud by being named 7 All-American athletes. 7 All-American athletes. That is huge. That's from the National High School Coaches Association, where the students get nominated to even qualify, and they have to have a 3.6 GPA on a 4.0 scale. So for us to have a team with 7 All-Americans, that's fantastic. And on top of which, some of those All-Americans also won the 4x200 boys relay, they're 3rd place in the nation, the 2-mile girls race, 5th place in the nation, and the 4x4 boys race, 5th place in the nation. So as I said before, we have so much to celebrate. As we can finally stop for a second, I think, and breathe, because I do think that we're on the other side of this. And now that I said that, I feel like the ceiling's gonna fall or something. But we do continue to strive for excellence every single day. We never took our eye off the ball. There was tears, there was stress beyond, there was everything that you could possibly imagine, but we got there. And we have our Dragon Pride and our social emotional supports, very proud of that. Our academics, very proud of that. And our arts and our athletics, very proud of that. So it is time, I think, for us to take a pause and celebrate as a district where we are now in 2023. Questions?
So let's put a little order on it and just go around the horn here. So Richard, if you just want to take it first.
So first off, thank you for giving this presentation. I know put a lot of effort into coming up with these numbers and crunching the numbers, and I know as a board, we appreciate it. I have a few questions about the slide, the federal fund slide
Sure.
with the hours. So I noticed on the slide, it said that in 2021, 2022, we received 1,283 hours. And this year, we're expected, or continuing, 1,218 federally funded tutoring hours of instruction. So my first question here, reading through this, it says these hours is slated for completion during the 2022-2023 school year for qualified K through 12 students. What does, who qualifies for this instruction?
Good question. So our students, if they are being identified as struggling, it's not just an automatic in. There, again, assessments need to take place. So, for example, on the elementary level, they would have taken the STAR assessment, they would have taken IXL. How are they doing in their everyday, like, quizzes, end of unit assessments? Have they gone to RTI and gone through the process? And then this would be an intervention that is given to them. So that's how you get in. On the secondary level, it's based on report cards for the first and second quarter. It continues to be monitored. We want to keep these groups small so they can be intensive. And it may vary. You know, this is all skills-based, especially with math. So you may be struggling for a little bit in a specific skill strand for math, and then you get tutoring, and now you're not struggling anymore, and now we're going to pick up another student. So it's an intensive process. Really a lot of teacher recommendation as the first level. They bring the data to the team, and the second and the middle level, they bring it to guidance. And yeah, so that's how it's a complete process of how kids are identified, and it's fluid for who's in and out.
So let's say a student receives like AIS services and stuff. Are those students disqualified from receiving this?
Absolutely not. No students disqualified. So it's, again, based on need. So in our RTI meetings, which I'm sure you're learning all about in college, it's a very intensive process. And you want to look at your your bottom 15%. That may be kids who are in AIS. That may be kids who are in special ed. It may be a kid that's just faltering in a particular skill and needs to be picked up. So it's a varied process based on, again, our market is children. So kids have varied needs, and that's how the process works.
Okay. So I see here that we still have 1,218 hours left, right? Is that the?
That's what's remaining for this school year.
For the
Some
school year.
have already been used. That was
Some
the
have-
total allocation remaining for this year.
So we have 1,218 remaining currently, right?
Minus
From
what's been
September.
already used for this school year.
So do we know what's been used since September? Or?
I don't, but the total number is 1,218 for this school year. If you add the two numbers together, that's what we allocated as a total number based on what was built into the funds.
Okay. So, and this is being distributed throughout all 5 of our schools?
Yes, it's K-12.
Okay, yeah, okay. And we have people, teachers that are running this program and.
So the process, like I had shared, starts with teacher recommendations. And then after all that's done, there's postings and there's postings for tutors. And so if teachers are applying and they're getting that position, in every building, not all teachers apply, and we still need kids to be tutored. So we might have teaching assistants that do it. But it's a K-12 process.
Yep, so my point is, we already have like a plan laid out to use the remaining hours.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
You're up, Margaret.
I have no questions. I mean, this is very thorough. You know, it's nice to see where we're ranked on a national level as well, and how, you know, our kids compete not only on the scores, the standardized scores testing, but also, you know, all the other achievements that we have, that I really feel like we're pushing out some well-rounded students. So thank you very much for all of your data crunching and for bringing it all to our attention and not making me have to go through this all myself.
It's okay. I'll send you my my new eye exam.
I was going to say, yeah. Thanks, Meg.
Thank you, Megan. I'm going to continue to read this at home. And yes, I'm very impressed, especially given the fact that we were looking at a pandemic. I might have questions after I read this again, and I can always get in touch with you. I realize that, so I might take advantage of that. But basically, what I try to always keep in mind when reading these is the fact that when you, first of all, yes, you want to make sure that you have the right amount of pride, which you have plenty of, and also the balance that we understand that there's always more we can do. But and that's the way it should be. And the part that's the total difference that I never anticipated in my life either is shutting down schools for what wound up to be almost a year and a half, virtually. So yes, you have to keep that in mind as well, and that's what makes this super impressive to me, because how much was anticipated that would be lost. So that's the first thing. I also, when I look at when you relate to different regions, such as, you look up here, Hudson Valley, Orange, Rockland, and then Westchester. You're looking at, it's such a weird thing to compare. You're looking at a Scarsdale, which they don't know what to do with all their money. And it's a much smaller district. I mean, you look at a Greenwood Lake even up here, and you look at where it ranks, what, 84 students. Rockland County, again, you're trying to compare sometimes apples to oranges, because when you look at the numbers and you realize that you're being compared to, first of all, districts of greater wealth, it's almost like being compared where you can say, well, a private school, let's say, well, a private school can pick and choose what students they want, and they don't have to have students that have special needs. They don't have to meet any of those qualifications. So yes, I am impressed. I know we'll do even more. Like when your parent sees your report card and says, that was good, but I know you can do better. And thank you very much for what went into this report. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. And, you know, Teresa, you're right. Like, just to piggyback on that really fast, I mean, you didn't have the benefit. Every time I've done the report, we always highlight the areas we need growth on. We just do. I mean, that's how we grow. You're not going to grow unless you highlight areas that you need to expand upon. What is exciting is when you can see growth within the bands. You know, when you see those percentile points increasing, even if it's, you know, by a handful, it's still growth. But when you see it increasing by very much, that's really exciting. And adversely, if it's going the other direction, okay, we need to scoop that up and see what we need to do with it. You're welcome.
Thanks, Brandon. And thanks, Megan, for a great presentation. I mean, very nicely put together. I do have questions. I mean, generally across the board, I can see, anybody can see who would look at the data that we did not fall behind. I mean, that can sum it up. However, my questions are related to areas where we didn't do that. So out of curiosity, when we compare to Orange County ranking results, who's number 2? Because I see there's with either first or second. We used to be first or second or vice versa. So in Orange County, can you recall who's number 1?
I can, don't misquote me for each one, but typically it was Greenwood Lake or Florida. And I'm going to tell you that I'm not discounting their progress, but it's very different when you're comparing, like to Teresa's point, apples to oranges. We're talking about 83 kids tested versus 1,100. Again,
Okay.
the data is the data. Within every one of them, we analyze it. Where do we need to grow? But that would be the main, those would be the 2. There, what was the other? There was one in the, I noted it there. Well, Warwick was right behind us on one of them, but I did put it up here. Okay, so Greenwood Lake overall, Bass, this isn't broken down for every single one. I could certainly give that to you, but that's kind of the common thread, was Greenwood Lake and Rhinebeck was, yeah. I can't, of course, pull it up right now. But it's usually those 2.
So,
And honestly, it's,
The
it's a
size.
very small distance, number in testing.
okay.
It is similarly to comparing to a private school in terms of numbers.
Okay, thank you. Question number 2, I have 4 questions.
You go for it.
So number 2, when we compare to Orange, Rockland, and Westchester, that in comparison with comparing ourselves only to Orange, that's where the question comes from. So while we're either first or second in Orange, why suddenly we're in the 20s? Like ranking when we include Rockland and Westchester. I don't know if this relates to the comment that Teresa made. They're wealthier
Okay.
districts.
I
mean,
think,
should
yes.
that matter and why?
So if you're talking, like here, is that like for an example?
Yep, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So we're talking about probably in this respect about, I think there's between all of them is 70 districts. So it's just a large, so if you look at, like, we were 24th, now we're 11th. In previous for that, we would have maybe been second or first, but we're comparing that many more districts.
So probably looking
Not
at the
districts,
percentage.
yeah, school, yeah.
Probably looking at the percentage would be
The
a
breakdown
lot
of
fairer
that.
than doing where number and number.
Yep,
Okay.
probably, yeah.
My second question, staying on the same slide, why does it look like grade 4 and grade 5?
Good, yes, good catch.
Yeah.
Where they're dipping. Okay, so typically what happens, and I'm not surprised, because this is what I would consider to be like our transition years right now after COVID. So usually when kids move into the middle school, there usually is a little bit of a dip into 5th grade, and it's just the nature of them transitioning into 5th grade. In looking at this data, our 4th grade usually does better, especially in ELA, and again, I think it has to do with that depth of learning, but also these kids, when the pandemic happened, they were starting 2nd grade. So that was a huge foundational time for your writing, to become a deeper writer, to make those connections and skills. So I'm not surprised by that, actually, just because of the nature of, it's their first time taking a state exam. The 4th graders never took it. And just basically what I had shared before with the power standards versus proficiency standards. I have faith that we're going to move that up. Definitely, the teachers they take it very personally when they fall down like that. So I have no doubt that we're going to push that forward. But every year we do see a slight dip and you might even see a slight dip from like 8th to 9th grade. Those transition years are tough for the kids. New school, there's a lot of different pieces that go into it. 4th grade is a little bit of an anomaly, but I looking at the data on the areas that they dipped in, it's consistent with what we're seeing across.
This kind of, I can't help but to recall that we did talk before during one of our meetings about the 9 years old nationwide, that huge study that everybody was talking about, NPR, New York Times, you name it. And I think I remember that it did not affect us as much as it did affect other schools. And here we see that actually it did affect us.
Not for
learning
math,
loss, or?
But not from math. So look at that last column.
Yeah.
We showed tremendous growth in math with the study that you're comparing us to.
You're right. But in ELA it did.
Yeah, and Bess,
The study was math. Yeah, yeah.
for math, we did very well. For ELA,
Yes.
one of the other things too, and for people who are new on the board, we've had a huge push in the last couple of years to align our 3 elementary schools with how we're teaching guided reading with Fidelity. So this is the first year that we're fully implementing the Fontes and Pinnell program. So that's part of our target attack for how do we make this move in the other direction.
Okay, so I think that the lesson is like, this is what the beauty of numbers is, what are we learning here? And how do we address it? How do we fix that? To me, when I look at grade 3 improvement, suddenly grade 4, whoa, it's going in the other direction. So what's the reason behind it? It shouldn't be difficult to address it and fix it. Right?
Well,
It's
it is
not like
difficult
they're
because
just
we're
1 year
dealing with
older.
children.
This is interesting. To look, grade 3, we used to be 24th, we're 11th, huge improvement. Grade 4 is just the other. It's like you flip it around. You used to be 12, now you're 23rd.
But remember,
these
those
kids
fourth
are-
graders
yeah.
never took that, they never took an exam. They were in second grade when we closed. So it's not like the kids that you're seeing that third grade, that's their fourth grade score. That's for the kids from 2019
yeah.
to 2022.
Right.
So those third graders are actually in fifth grade now. That's the comparison of the years for the kids that we're talking about. So it's not like all of a sudden they went to fourth grade and they dipped down. That's
No,
not
no.
even the same cohort.
Yeah, of course not. I just wonder, I mean, when you, like on the same slide, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, I would have expected kind of consistency. Thank you. I mean, I can move on. Number 3, New York State ranking. New York State ranking, it might be related to when we looked at Orange, Rockland, and Westchester. Again, grade 4, grade 5, a huge dip. I mean, you know, grade 4 used to be 34th, you go down to 88. And grade 5 used to be 28, you go down to 139th, all in ELA. Math is improving. I mean, that's clear, but looks like comparing ourselves to three big counties around us and statewide, the problem is very clear with grade 4 and grade 5.
Yeah, and that's what we highlighted in the presentation. So we're going to continue to focus on those areas, like I had shared, with where we need to work on the writing, where we need to work on vocabulary, connections between the content. So we've used the data that's been given to us to kind of wash it to say, why did that happen? Granted, I just shared with you the other reasons in terms of transition years, in terms of the kids missing part of that foundational writing component that now they're getting that built upon. But yeah, you're right. I mean, those are the areas that I highlighted in the presentation that we need to grow on.
And just like Megan and I stood before the board to say we're not going to see the same learning loss that the rest of the nation saw, we're saying with confidence this time next year, because of the amazing teachers that we have who are nothing but committed to making sure our students get what they need, you will see an improvement in those areas. It's just what our staff does. The other thing is, I mean, it's easy to look at a snapshot in time. I will tell you, as someone who has been on the test development side of things, looking at one cohort versus another, sometimes it just comes down to the assessment and what questions were in the assessment, what the focus was, where we put more emphasis. We may have put more emphasis in poetry or nonfiction or things of that nature, and then the exam was slammed with something else. So we look over time. So if we see these same fourth graders progressing on and they're continually 88th, come in, I will eat these words, but I'm saying with confidence, you will not see the same trend for these students because of the amazing staff that we have.
Okay.
here.
Thank you. My last question, I don't want to keep everybody waiting here till I get done. Fourth question is New York State Regents. There's a slide where it shows all the topics. Yeah. No, you
Yeah, you're
skipped-
right.
Yeah,
Yep.
this one. New York State, yes.
For the, you want, oh, okay. I didn't know if you, I
Right.
listed them all, if you wanted that.
So this is like the beauty of this slide. It shows you all the subjects, right? The students got tested in. What strike me is are like 3 topics: earth science, chemistry, geometry. Compared to the rest, we don't rank as high as the rest. Like, why do you think that's the case?
So for geometry, we
Yeah.
moved from 313th place to 183rd place. That's a humongous
Yeah, I'm
change.
looking at where we sit in New York State, top 52%. Like, okay, let me rephrase my question. These 3 subjects, earth science, chemistry, geometry, we sit at 48th, 52, 52nd, 45th, compared to the rest where we sit at 11, 17, 8, 21, 34, 25. So again, I mean, this is kind of what I would be interested in, where we sit in percentage, rather where do we rank?
So, and just to
see the difference.
So like physics, for example, that's, not every student takes that exam. That's for some of your highest performing students. Geometry is one of the toughest in terms of that in between the Algebra 1 and 2 exam. You know, again, back to what you were saying before, I think we have to.
I'm comparing, the pool here is the whole New York State. Like, let me give you an example.
I understand.
Okay, so if I go to, and I want to stay in math so I don't compare apples to oranges here. I'm not going to compare history to math, but let me take Algebra 2, we're top 25. Geometry, top 52%. That's kind of where my question comes from. So what does it tell me about geometry here in this district? Why our students are doing much better in Algebra 2 compared to geometry?
I hear what you're saying, Bas, but I think what we need to focus on is not that percentage number, is how much we've moved from 2019 to 2022. We moved from 313th to 183rd. So clearly the work that we're doing in looking at our standards and changing our practices, it doesn't happen overnight. And the fact that we made that movement during a pandemic is amazing. So I fully anticipate that we'll continue to move in the right direction. Those are Algebra 1, 205th place to 78th. I mean, those are huge movements. And again, we're talking about children. So that's our product. You know, we can't forget that. It's not just a number on a screen. This is moving our children vastly forward. Would I love for it to be higher than 52% overall? Absolutely. But am I proud that we've moved the needle from 313th to 183rd? You better believe it. So what we're doing is working.
Yeah, I agree. The trend is in the right direction. Yep.
Right direction,
Yep.
for
Thank
sure.
You. Thank you. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Megan, for this very in-depth presentation. You know, just a few top-level thoughts. You know, of course, this is one data point, but it's a very important one. But obviously, you know, this isn't the end-all and be-all. The teachers are with the kids in the school, and we know a lot of that. I see a lot here of moving in the right direction. I'm very happy that we didn't experience the learning loss, that we saw some of those national stories in the fall. And, you know, I said here in a meeting, I didn't think that we would suffer that fate, and I'm happy to see that the numbers sort of prove that out. Couple just sort of clarification questions, and then you talked about mastery quite a bit in the presentation. The credit card says proficiency. Are those two, are you using those terms interchangeably?
So mastery would be our students who are ranking in, like, you'd get a 4 on an exam,
Okay.
or 85 and better for Regents exam. Proficiency is going to be your 3s and above.
So 3 and 4, and that, okay.
Yep.
Because the report card gives the proficiency score, it doesn't give the mastery, but it's just the
Right.
highest band is
You got it.
mastery.
Yep.
Okay. So mastery, sorry, that was one of my questions, was 85 on the Regents. And what's passing on the Regents is what, 62 or something?
65. 65, right?
okay.
65. We're landing at 65.
So I want to go back to one of your very early slides when you're looking at the OU BOCES. Right there, yeah. There was one for math and one for ELA, that slide there. Where we're highlighted in blue,
Oh,
right there, yeah.
okay, go ahead.
So you're talking about the, what do you mean by the percentile points here? Is that an absolute measure there, or is that a relative measure?
So it's okay, good question. So if you look at, right now, we dipped down 1.4 percentile points within, if you see level 4, that's our mastery.
Okay,
So that's where we dipped for this overall result. Whereas you'll see Warwick, they went up 3.5 mastery points within their band.
so so that's comparing, that's an absolute, good. So that's really, there's a lot of comparative data here.
There's a lot of comparative.
And I always appreciate that we compare to the county, and then we compare to Westchester Rockland, and compare to the state. You threw in some national figures here. And in a normal environment, that's data to look at. But I'm happy to see that the absolute data, because you know, if everybody, you know, a rising tide raises all ships, when the tide goes out, we could have just been stuck on a higher rock than somebody else, but we'd both be grounded, right? So comparative data in this environment coming out of a pandemic could not necessarily tell the whole story if everybody dropped huge amounts. So the absolute data, I'm glad to see that we compared that as well. This one, yes, it was a minor drop. The math, I think, went up 3 points, 2 slides forward, yeah.
You can see that in everything.
Right.
This is one snippet for you guys, yeah.
I'm just happy to see that, you know, that's, to me, is a real measure that there's no precipitous drop there. The comparative data is important, but I'm glad to see that we have this absolute data here. And then my last question, do you get more data from New York State than just these levels of proficiency? Do you get any data on, hey, this subject area within LA or within math that can further aid us to help students moving forward?
Yes, so for every student that takes the exam, so we get our general school, right? We get our districts, we get ELA, we get math, we get grade levels, and then we get individualized students, strands and reports. So we can break down individually the trends for how individual kids are doing, and that helps support them. And actually, it's nice, in past years, they did take feedback because we were like, well, this is lovely, but we're getting it so late that it doesn't, we want to have the kids in front of us, and they have adjusted some of their reports to reflect that. A little less so this school year. I think that they were just so busy with trying to get us reports, and they did get them to us in a timely fashion, which was nice. But yes, so that's what drives our needle, you know, is looking at your grade level as a whole. How did we do, you know, hey, maybe Willow did really great in this, and, you know, COH, we need to up it a little bit. Let's talk. What are you guys doing?
Yeah,
you know?
that's fantastic. Yeah, because it's one thing to say, hey, grade 4 did poorly in math last year, so we got to look at grade 5 and improve their math.
Right.
What is that?
Right.
So it's great that we're getting a little more actionable data to really dig in
and teachers
improve those
even
scores.
get their own reflective practice, so they can see, like, I mean, again, those kids have now left, but they can say, I really nailed equations. I kind of need some more help with pushing out fractions.
Great.
You know, so yeah.
That was my list. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had 47 questions, but you guys asked them already. No, it's, overall, the overall data points are absolutely wonderful. And what's even more wonderful is you outlined a plan for the areas that we slipped. So that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Megan, thank you for the presentation. There are a couple big pictures, and I think the last slide kind of covered it really well in terms of where we stand in relation to the competing communities around us. And I think that's a very important big picture to take away from this. And I thank you for adding that, because I know we were just focusing in on assessments, but you kind of expanded it from the, you know, the state assessment test beyond that to, you know, how does the world look at us, right? Nish, I'm not sure if they've been accredited or not. There's some educators will tell you no. Others will, you know, hang their stars to it. So depending on who you talk to, you know. But U.S. News and World Report obviously is a standard that everyone goes by, and so that's encouraging. I really appreciate you cutting the numbers for us in the way that you did. It shows something that I don't think we've seen before, which is a deep dive into how you would relatively look at us as a district to not only Orange County, but also our region and then the state. Thank you for putting that context into this briefing. I was hoping you could go to your New York State ranking result slide.
For 3-8 or for regions?
It starts on, the first one. You know, individually, 3, 4, 5, we'll start there. And so there's good news here, a lot of good news. And I was hoping you could demystify some of the numbers for me. And I know other people have talked about it, and I'm still struggling with some of the verbiage. I think if I understood Jim's question about mastery and proficiency, I heard you use the term power versus proficiency earlier. Is power and mastery the same thing, or is it different?
I would say they're interchangeable in regards
Yeah,
to, you know, when you think of your when you think of your power standards, those were the standards we had to hit. So think with power. So this is where we look at our current curriculum maps, and we had to say, okay, New York State says we need to absolutely hit these 7 within this world, okay? So we hit these 7. In a non-pandemic year, we might hit those 7. We would spend more time on those 7. We would dig deeper in those 7. So that's what builds your mastery. So think of the power standards get you to proficiency, whereas in a non-pandemic year, we don't really focus on power standards. We obviously hit all the power standards. We go deeper within them, and then we expand out, and that gets us to our mastery.
Got it. Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
clarifying that. 'Cause
I
was
get, there's a
missing
lot of
that part.
terms. I understand.
Yeah, missing
There's
that
a lot
part.
of terms.
So I was hoping that you could talk to some of the differences. As you were talking, thank you for providing the state website. I was able to do some quick numbers, crunched them here. Grade 3 ELA shows that we've improved by the state, but our absolute value actually declined by 4 percentage points. How did that happen?
Without having all that.
Because
right in front of me.
relatively we're getting better, but the data suggests if you cut it a certain way, we've actually had learning loss. When you
Within
compare it-
mastery. So
Say again?
okay, if you remember what I had shown you, although we may have even fallen a ranking point, we could still show progress in it. And adversely to your question, it shows we're showing progress, but maybe in another area, it looks like we've gone down lower. That's because of that mastery. So most years I come up here and I share all the great things we've done, and I also show our growth within mastery. That's the one area, and I've said it several times here, where we're gonna up the ante again. The depth is increasing now. We have our kids in front of us every day. We don't have an absenteeism rate, you know, so on and so forth. To answer Jim's question and Bass's question, it's the same question. It's the depth of learning. We're not only teaching to the power standards, we're teaching to the mastery levels. Are we going to always have high mastery in every single thing? Absolutely not. But we always want to show our growth within the band and our growth within the mastery bands.
So mastery is different than proficiency though, right?
Right.
So the numbers that the state provide are talking about proficiency, and that's scoring a 3 or higher.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Do I have that right?
Correct.
I'm sorry.
So this slide is talking about proficiency?
That's right,
It's
proficiency.
rank. Okay, thank you.
So relatively speaking to the state, our proficiency ranking improved. However, when you look at it from 2019 to 2022, it would appear that for 3rd grade, our proficiency actually declined by 4 percentage points.
So I'm gonna,
And so, let me get to, you can answer the question once I get it out. So I looked at how we improved relative to everybody else. When I looked at it from an absolute numerical score, just proficiency, not getting into, you know, those who are mastering it may have improved, and maybe those who are level 1 may have moved on to level 2 or level 3, or not level 3, but level 2. The only between 3 and 8 that I saw an improvement in proficiency for this district was 7th grade ELA and 6th grade ELA. All the rest, we declined, which I would think would be learning loss when you compare, you know, 2019's 3rd grade to 2022's 3rd grade. If you have a percentage decline, that would be an indicator. I'm not saying it's absolute, but that number would indicate, at least to a commoner like me, not an educator, that there was probably some type of learning loss associated with the third grade.
So, John, just to answer your questions, I'm just going to be
So-
really frank here.
Yeah.
We literally just went through an entire presentation where we showed growth within all different areas and so on after a pandemic. And I am going to sound a little frustrated only because the fact of the matter is, this is a tremendous report, and nowhere in it did I say we don't have room for growth. We can sit down and we can go through every single strand and every single standard. I mean, the gist is here. I don't know what else. I mean, we have national data, we have state data, we have regional data. It's all here. So granted, yes, you can look at it from that lens and you can move it. It's fine. The fact of the matter is that we have shown tremendous growth. We're going to continue to show tremendous growth. We're dissecting what we have done in each one of those bands to continue with not only proficiency, but with mastery, because we have lacked in mastery. And nowhere along it are we going to, hang anyone here for getting a little bit lower in certain areas for their performance.
I don't know who's talking about hanging, Megan. I think all would agree that coming out of the pandemic, we can breathe a sigh of relief of where we find ourselves relative to the rest of the state and the rest of
That's
our
good to
local
hear
thing.
that, because I'm not hearing that. That's why I was just...
However, from an absolute perspective, if I had a kid who is a fourth grader in 2019, the data suggests that if I had another kid who is now in 2022 a fourth grader, the data suggests from an ELA perspective, proficiency dropped by 20%. In math, the data suggests proficiency dropped by 7%, even though we went from being 51st in the state in math in 19 to 22. And so I'm not trying to hang anybody. I'm actually trying to make sure that the resources are being made available to address the needs of the kids out there. And when I see the absolute numbers that suggest that there has been learning loss, it's been quite severe, except unless you took a Regents 8th grade class, I walk away with a different view than the last page of the presentation. And I know that you spend a lot of time doing a deep dive, but how, and this is my question, how important is it that we see absolute percentage declines in these specific grades that are double digit?
All right, so to Megan's point, I just want to make sure, so this won't only go to the board, but it's just not true. We're not seeing, you can take a single column, but there's 4 columns. I'm a math guy. If you have an increase in 2s, it's going to impact the 100% that's spread across the 4 bands. So just taking a singular column, it doesn't work that way. So if we're talking
Proficiency
about
is 3 and above, though, I thought.
Proficiency and mastery. So those are 2 important bands. But what I want to make sure that we're really wrapping our head around is the term learning loss. You cannot compare 4th graders from 2019 to 4th graders from 2022. It's just, you cannot do it.
I'd agree.
In Cornwall Central School District, you cannot do it because if you go back to the refusal slide, our 4th graders who took the test are very different than the 4th graders who took the test in 2022. When I was interviewed for superintendent, the question was, when so many parents don't trust standardized tests, we're over 25% refusal rate, what do you do to really make sure that you're providing a whole child experience, X, Y, or Z? And that was really important for Cornwall. So when we talk about learning loss with our building administrators and our staff, are the kids that we have in front of us right now, looking at the assessment data that we have from last year, formative assessment data in our math classes, in our reading classes, and providing the thousands upon thousands of hours of federally funded tutorials and our AIS support and the work that our teachers do in the classroom, that's the way we address any kind of gaps that our students are presented with. So when we talk about the resources, on top of our AIS that we have in every single building support, we also have over 3,000 hours of federally funded tutorials where we're pulling those students in. So again, I want to go back to getting your specific question. Let's look at where you're seeing double-digit dips, because I'm not sure how we do double-digit dips in all proficiency areas and still come out number 1 or number 2 in Orange County. So, but to answer your question about resources, the resources are there. We have the hours upon hours of federally funded tutorial hours. We hired additional teachers and TAs for push-in support. We have professional development around our science curriculum and our reading language arts curriculum that we've devoted to for numerous years. That's how we're bridging gaps. And then we look long-term. I've yet to get an email from a parent that says my child's no longer getting into the college or university that they would like to. My child, Ada, has been here in the pandemic, 3rd, 4th, just as on high honor roll. So I'm just not, it's not a totality of, excessive learning loss. We're looking at each individual child and providing the supports that they need.
So the numbers are the numbers. The reasons the numbers are is really what I think the conversation should migrate to, because the data does not lie. The numbers suggest that of all those 8 grades or 8 bands, only 2 actually showed an improvement in proficiency, which I understand based on the data dictionary provided by the state is if you scored 3 or above in a test. 6 out of 8 going negative, some of them double digit. Blame it on COVID. But let's be clear that we need to be focused on this, and I hope next year we'll see a reversal of those absolute trends that obviously last year hit us hard with.
Absolutely, and throughout the whole
However-
presentation, we talked about being focused on it.
However, I think it's important to focus on the numbers. Relative, we're looking great. Absolute, we're not looking good. And as a matter of fact, New York State's not looking good on an absolute basis when compared to the rest of the country. Hence, you see a lot of people leaving New York State and moving to other places for a variety of reasons, not just education. Anyhow, Megan, again, no one is looking to hang anybody here. We're all looking to make sure that the resources that you need to make sure that kids are being proficient and improving year over year, whether it be on a cohort basis or at a specific grade level basis, is happening. That's it. Please keep up the good work.
Louis?
I got a trick mic. Was it on? I got no light. All right. So I'm going to go back a bit and thank Terry and his team a couple years ago for pushing us and attending school during that COVID time, because I think that plays a huge part in getting our students into the buildings and in front of our educators. As tumultuous as it was and as challenging and as difficult as it was, I don't think we'd be seeing these numbers trending the way they are now. While everybody admits there's a dip here or there, no one's denying it, but I think it plays a huge part in this whole endeavor. I love I think it's hugely promising. The migrating refusal rates are getting almost down into those low double digits. That's huge. Have our kids in the schools to test them, to just to know where everybody is. I think it's a major milestone there. Megan, with the Orange County rankings and then the local rankings, Orange, Rockland, and Westchester, how many schools are we talking about in each area?
So off the top of my head, Orange County is 16. Orange, Rockland, and Westchester was about 70, and the Mid-Hudson Rick was about 50. And I could get the exacts, that's just off the top of my head.
That was my major question. I love the Brag and Dragon too. That's pretty cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Yeah, tremendous presentation, a lot to chew on. I appreciate the questions so far. I've really kind of exhausted this from most, if not all, angles. I do want to go back to one thing you had mentioned. It just, the role of writing and the importance of the writing instruction, because I believe it was the first academic presentation that I heard on the board, so that would have been, I guess, 2019. This was brought up as like a target. So this is something that predates the pandemic and continues to today. I suppose I have two questions. If really you can just discuss what the role of the importance of improved writing is, not just for ELA, but everything across the board. And in particular, knowing that it has been a goal of the district now for a few years, what are we doing at I suppose the most important level is elementary, but all throughout to really improve and produce some of these great numbers that we see?
Yep. So we have been working on, I've shared this before, so when Common Core came, and I've said from go, there was good things to take away from Common Core and there were not great things. One of the things that was not great was the fact that writing was really dismissed, and it was shameful. So we, in our district, in all 3 elementary schools, we worked really hard to try it. We did writing rubrics, we did what we needed to do, but while trying to implement a new curriculum with fidelity for Common Core. Then after we got through that, we started to really reflect and say, our writing is definitely not where we want it to be. And in fact, it's dipping. And to your point, it's not just that you're doing writing during ELA time. It translates into all different areas. As you can see with the math pieces and the word problems, that's just one example. But talk about writing in social studies later on. You need to be able to write in science. So it's a huge component to what we need to focus on. When I took this role over 5 years ago, I started building into our title grants some money for F&P, so Fontes and Pinnell Learning, for guided reading. And with that, we've been able to purchase the kits, purchase the resources and materials, and also put a lot of money into a staff developer that we work with, that she works from F&P. So that work started last school year, even though we were just coming out of the pandemic, because we had started it pre-COVID, and everybody was like, let's go, we need to keep moving forward with this. So we started that training last school year, and now this whole school year, all our K-4 teachers, actually there's a couple of teachers from 5th grade also that are participating in it, and they work with our staff developer, Jean-Ann West. She comes from Texas, and we've been working on that program throughout this school year. So it will be a minute before we'll see the results on it, but it's definitely something that is at the highest priority.
A quick question, what do you accredit the refusal rate to? I mean, it's been, that trend was remarkable, how clearly it's been going down over the years. And pretty short order. I mean, it only went back to, I think, you were tracking it 2016, 17, but...
You're right, because prior to that time frame, you couldn't refuse. So just as a historical point of reference, in 2015, it became a thing where people could refuse the test, and actually was an anomaly on the answer sheet, whereas that was really for when I was teaching special classes as a special educator, we were able to, if a student completely refused the exam, we could bubble that in, and that was a test refusal. Throughout Common Core, it became an avenue for families to opt out of the assessments, and they could take advantage of the test refusal, which that was in that 2015 timeframe. So that's our first data point as a district that we have for the test refusals on the elementary level for 3-8. So, but to your point, I mean, I remember literally calling every single family that we got a refusal letter of and saying, you know, can we have a conversation? What are your concerns? And several families did change their minds. Some, you know, several families held to what they believed was, you know, detrimental at that time, and you have to respect both sides of it. But it was really nice to see. You know, I think part of the coming back up was pre-pandemic was just Common Core is, you know, not here anymore. And we're next generation state standards, so I think people maybe are feeling a little more confident that it's not kind of the way Common Core was rolled out. And then honestly, last spring, I think everyone just wanted to know, like, how's my kid doing? I'm gonna have them take the test. You know, there really is no rhyme or reason for it. We were pleasantly surprised.
And final question, I'm suddenly mindful that you've been on your feet for a very long time.
I wore the shorter heels, so you're
yeah,
okay.
you planned. So COVID was, among many other things, was a period of experimentation, let's just say. We're trying a lot of different things, being forced to. Have there been any lessons, things that, maybe new things that we were forced to try that we found actually worked well, produced results, and, you know, could be meaningful for us as a board to understand if questions come up, you know, later as to where to allocate resources? If there's just anything that came to mind that would be good for us to know was beneficial.
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is just the fast track of technology professional development. I mean, we overnight executed our 5-year plan in terms of where we wanted people to be for professional development, for teaching your kids. Google Classroom became the norm. You know, it was previous really just used at the high school level. Some maybe 7th, 8th grade teachers were using it. Now it is really the standard. So that was a definite plus. So, you know, continuing on that path. You know, it's hard to say because we had so many things that were in place to hit the go button for in 2018, 19, and then 2020 happened and it was all put on the shelf. So now we're executing our Smithsonian science after doing the full year pilot. Now we're, you know, doing FMP. You know, I guess just continuing to support when we have, you know, we meet with our teams and we say this is what we need. Education's always changing. So, you know, lessons learned, I don't think things that you can support with resources. I think it was patience. I think it was tolerance. I think it was understanding. You know, SEL was huge. I don't ever want to lose sight of that. That was something that we always need to focus on for our students and our staff. But I think just, you know, you guys have always been really supportive if we say, you know, listen, this is what we need to do. Science on the secondary level and math on the secondary level, big changes are coming. So I will be coming to you.
Thank you, Megan.
You're welcome.
Okay, I thank you for the tremendous presentation and show of endurance and strength.
I'm no Carrie Beloga, but.
That's right, yeah. Okay, that brings us to our committee reports. Run down the list. I don't think with the Christmas holiday, many of us have much to report, but Larry, facilities?
There's a facilities meeting on February 28th coming up, and today's consent agenda, we have acceptance of the air conditioning bid for the middle school. That was not part of the project. That was the transfer to capital that we had voted on previously. So,
Thank you, Larry.
There had to be a change in the schedule for the policy committee, and I appreciate the committee members adjusting their schedule to accommodate the change I had in my plans. So that, instead of being January 19th, our policy committee meeting will be February 1st.
Got it.
Thank you again.
Jim, I just have to ask for audit.
Nothing to report.
Thank you, Jim. Margaret, visitation? Nothing. Terry, health and safety? And Brendan, who's that? Communication, we have a our forum that was going to be before Christmas is now going to be next, honestly, not quite sure what January 17th is. Is that next Wednesday? My mind, full disclosure, everybody, the CES musical, which is going to be an extraordinary spectacle, is this Saturday, January 14th. You should definitely bring your children and perfect strangers. That's as far as I can think, but next Tuesday. Thank you, Jim. So we'll be pushing out updates. They'll be in the Cornwall local and social media and everything to get word out about that. But that will provide the deep dive update into the some of the progress and questions about the ongoing capital project work that we had touched on prior to the break. Okay, now we'll move to the consent agenda. The consent agenda allows the Board of Education to make more effective use of its time by adopting a single motion to cover relatively routine matters. Is there any member of the board who would like to pull an item off the consent agenda?
I'd like to pull item number 5, please.
Yep.
Number 6?
Number 6. Anybody else? Okay, so it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following consent agenda items as submitted by the Superintendent of Schools. So that is numbers 2 through 4. Do I have a motion? Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried. So item number 5, this is the middle school air conditioning bid award resolution. Resolved upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the recommendation of District Engineers Blake Engineering. I'll take the rest per document. Do I have a motion? Second?
Second.
Discussion?
Thank you. Yeah, this question for Harvey, and if you could just give us the 30-second version. I know obviously there's state rules when we go and bid out capital work and a minimum number of bidders, and we go with the lowest price there. How do we ensure that the lowest price is actually going to do the proper job and a workmanlike job, and how do we make sure that they're not bidding on too low of a scope? Because obviously, any homeowner can attest to sometimes the lowest bid in the short to medium term, even especially in the long term, is not the lowest bid. So how do we make sure that we're getting the job done effectively?
Yep, good question, because you never want to be left short at the end and them saying, I'm sorry. The architect, engineer, whoever is the lead on it, they actually contact the low bidders, and they actually walk through the specs to make sure that they have captured and that they fully understand what each spec really means. So it's almost like going through it again a second time to make sure there's no surprises.
Perfect, thank you.
Harvey, just like follow on. Have you had cases before where, say, I come and bid on a project, let's say I'm gonna take it for $2,000. A few months later, I say, well, you didn't describe the job fully for me. Now I'm discovering something that's gonna increase the price to $3,000, for instance.
Okay, so if somebody, after that process that I just explained to Jim, they say, nope, my bid is good. And if down the road they're wrong and they, for whatever reason, don't have the capacity to complete the job, that's why we have performance bonds. The first call we make is to their insurance company, and we make sure the job gets done at that job.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried. Brings us to number 6, the transfer resolution. Resolved upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education does hereby approve the following 2022-23 budget line transfers, and that's for the computer-assisted instruction hardware. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
So, second?
Second.
Discussion?
Very quick question. So, Terry, if you could just, for board and public knowledge, explain why you made the recommendation to execute this transfer, as to the reasonings behind it.
So the board already has this information because I answered this question via email, so I'll enter it into the public. just pull up my exact wording to the board. Transfers being made because we got a better deal on some computer equipment through BOCES than purchasing directly from the vendor. Plus, we get BOCES aid on it, so the funds are budgeted already in the non-BOCES equipment line, so now they need to be transferred to the BOCES line.
Yep, thank you. Just thought it would be helpful to have the community hear that.
Okay.
Thanks.
I would say there's a perception out there. I don't know how general it is, but the perception is, and I'm gonna say it, is that the computers our students are assigned or whatever they're using are not really up there in terms of specs compared to other schools. Is that true? I mean, you know, like people talk about like touch screen. I mean, you can compare basic like $99, let's say, Chromebook to $1,000 Microsoft Surface. I mean, you know, I just like people not to have a wrong perception. I mean, what are the facts? How do we compare with other schools, at least around us?
Yeah, I mean, that's a much broader, I mean, this is a very specific line item.
Yeah.
So that, I don't want this to become a balloon into a much larger conversation. I mean, I don't know if we can answer that within the scope of this, current item.
Is the comparison between this like vendor and BOCES, I mean, does it at least come or touch what you just said or not? I mean, because we're talking kind of better offer. How about the specs? I mean,
Brendan?
I'm talking about specs, not like cheaper or more
No,
expensive.
if Harvey can provide an answer, that's great. I just don't want this to balloon into a much more general discussion.
So the specs are identical, okay? Identical specs. Sometimes BOCES get a better price than the vendor can. Sometimes it's more advantageous to not go through BOCES because we get certain things called hardware aid. It's a little bit involved, but we make that decision based on what's best for the district. But clearly, the specs are identical.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried. That brings us to our second recognition of visitors. So if there is any member of the public wishing to speak, please just step forward to the microphone, identify yourself, and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Good evening. Brenda Wright, CCTA President. I wasn't going to speak, but I just want you to remember how hard the teachers worked. They worked. And worked. And worked. Sometimes we needed a shovel and we were given a rake. And yet we see all the work that still needs to be done. And when we ask for something and you say that we're great and we know what we're doing, I would really like you to think about the need of what it is that we ask for. Everyone worked hard. The administrators worked hard. It was so hard. for the parents too. We just need to take into consideration that your teachers don't ask for more than they need. And when they ask for something, it's because they need it. I'm proud of my colleagues. I'm proud of my abuela, the custodians. It was a joint effort, and we should be proud. But we have a ways to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. Okay, a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Second?
Oh, sorry,
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried.
George was up big. 3 touchdowns.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.